We arrived at the Bon Voyage, and immediately Myard started drinking vodka tonics. Really drinking, rock star drinking. Her piss-poor mood had gotten pisser and poorer right when we walked in because Shauna pronounced Myard's name wrong, calling her Myrid. Hey, it's pronounced like the verb, Myard said to her. You know, mired in depression, mired in immense mental anguish, mired in a diabolical vortex of low self-esteem. Got it, Shauna said. Yeah, that's what you said last time, Myard said, batting her eyes like a sly homecoming queen. While the other 20 guests and I were in the living room talking about Shauna, her move to Cleveland, and all the opportunities that awaited her there, Myard sat alone in the kitchen, though we could see her all down the hall from where we planted. Every once in a while, she'd yell, "Boy, I'm sure gonna miss you, Shauna." Then she'd laugh real hard, and these 20 other guests with their 40 wide eyes just stared at her. You see, all these surprised eyes weren't just learning that Myard drank too much and had a sailor's mouth and didn't like Shauna. No, they soaked up the fact that there was barely trust between Myard and me, and the trust we did have was heavy and run down, a burden we lugged behind us like concrete shadows. After an hour or so and probably 7 drinks, Myard blurted, "Hey, Derek, maybe as a going-away gift you should fuck Shauna." 40 humongous eyes and 20 tongue-tied guests. Shauna looked at me. I tried to change the subject, asking, So, does anyone know the average rainfall in Cleveland? But no one was listening, all looking toward the kitchen at Myard. Guests reluctantly nibbled on chips and slurped the bottoms of their empty cocktails, chewing ice cubes, everyone too uneasy to replenish supplies, because that meant a trip into the kitchen near Myard's mean mouth. I knew her well enough to assume that things would diffuse if the other stunned guests and I ignored her outbursts, and it worked for a while. But then Myard slurred, "Shauna, are you sure you wouldn't like to give Derek a blowjob for old time's sake?" 20 other guests and 40 scathing eyes, their naked disgust all staring at Myard as she embarrassed herself, embarrassed us, me. Guilty by association, their odd eyes ricocheted from Myard to Shauna to me and back around, a vicious carousel, all these gazes grazing each of us. "We'll all watch," Myard said, aiming another homecoming smile toward Shauna. "Make a big batch of popcorn." "Out," Shauna said, "out of my house." I helped Myard stagger to the door and stagger down the stairs, almost falling twice, and I put her in the passenger seat and drove us home. The whole ride she kept saying, "Drop me off and go give it to her." Shut up. At least let her jerk you off. Shut up. Our conversation vanished as Myard passed out right in the middle of our latest screaming match. I pulled up to our lousy apartment building. I shook her. I said, "Get up," but she didn't move or say anything. The key was still in the ignition, so I turned the car on and found a radio station playing Leonard Skinner because Myard hated that hillbilly shit. I made the music blare and gave her a few shakes, but she didn't move, so I shut the car off and went to her side, opened her door, and said, "Let's go." She finally answered me by saying, "I can't," and I said, "Can you walk on your own?" But since her eyes had shut again and her head swiveled every direction like a broken compass, I knew she couldn't. Swooping her up in my arms the way a groom carries a bride on their wedding night. I started struggling up the stairs and she said, "Admit you want to have sex with her." I tried to ignore her, tried pretending that my ears were locked like safes and her words didn't know the combinations, but it didn't work. I had no guard from anything that came out of her mouth. I was halfway there, only 6 steps left. My arms shaking, I looked at Myard's face as she kept telling me how much better she deserved, which got me thinking about how much better I deserved, which got me thinking that maybe everyone thought they deserved more, which led me to the very notion of loved, and I remembered that old cliche, if you love something, set it free. All I wanted was to set Myard free and never hear her say another syllable. I arched my back because she seemed to be getting heavier with every step, She'd been getting heavier for months now. Every time she forced me to appointments with our lousy couples counselor, every time she said mechanics don't make enough money, every time we had our maintenance sex, something we did these days to avoid a breakdown like getting an oil change. I craned our combined weight up to the next step, my biceps burning, arms unable to hold her as high, which put increased pressure on the small of my back. Myers said, "You should love me more, Derek, but you can't stop treating me like I'm a worthless dog." I felt a puncturing, like a nail jammed into a tire, except there was no tire, just me. Like something had ripped into my skin, and there I was, leaking affection and patience and resilience. There I was, spilling love. Before I really realized what I was doing, my feet worked their way around, doing a 180 on that thin step, and I faced the bottom. And Myers mumbled something, but all I could make out was worthless dog, and I knew she'd said it again. So I let my arms go limp and dropped her, and watched her hit right at my feet and flip backwards, and then bounce all the way to the bottom of the stairs and land in a contorted heap, tangled like human laundry. I looked around to see if anyone was watching. There didn't seem to be, so I rushed down the stairs and crouched next to her mangled face. I said, "Are you all right?" I said, "Jesus, baby, you fell down the stairs." Thank you very much.